I think what the president was doing is sending a strong message to North Korea in language that Kim Jong-un would understand, because he doesn't seem to understand diplomatic language.
In other words, if you're dealing with a crazy guy, you might as well sound like you mean business, right? In language that guy can understand. Joining me right now, Fox News military analyst General Jack Keane. General, good to see you.
Good to see you,
What do you make of the president's comments?
Well, you know, it reminds me of the shock and awe comments we used against the Saddam Hussein regime in the past to try to get his attention. And what we're trying to describe here is that the United States has overwhelming military power that nobody in the world can stand up to. That's the message he's trying to do here. And we're trying to convince, obviously, the North Koreans and the Chinese, this message is intended for the Chinese as much as North Korea, that this administration, unlike the Obama administration, who had a policy of appeasement and accommodation to North Korea, has put the military option back on the table. That's what they're trying to convince them. And that gives us the juice, so to speak, for these sanctions and for diplomatic efforts to hopefully bear some fruit.
In other words, they have to fear us, right, General? And if they don't fear us, then, you know, no problem. They can do whatever they want. But, you know, they've certainly thrown around some rhetoric. So isn't it justifiable that we should put them on notice in a way that they haven't had to be on notice in years?
Yeah, I probably would have used a little different language, but we're all different. The point is that they are coming to the conclusion that they're dealing completely with a different administration who has a different objective. We are not going to accept the American people being held at risk by nuclearized ICBMs in the hands of North Korea. That is their objective, because they want that, because in their own minds that guarantees never will there be a regime change in North Korea. But we're not going to let them get to that stage. That's the point we're trying to get across.
Right, okay, but they kind of almost have it, right? In other words, we saw this report out of the Washington Post yesterday afternoon, which really seemed to be in many ways a game changer, General, because for so long we've seen North Korea out there. And you know what? To your credit, sir, you have said over and over again that North Korea is a very serious, going to be a very, very big threat, one that we have to deal with. But it really hasn't been out front and center on everyone's mind until now. Why is it so different now?
Well, I think just the acceleration that they've been going through is really the issue. He's put this whole missile development on fast forward, and he's outpacing any of the estimates that people had about his capability to do this. So now we've got miniaturized nuclear capability that we believe he's tested, and the next thing he has to do is make certain he's got a re-entry vehicle that can carry it properly and get it back into the Earth's space. But, you know, hardening a vehicle to be able to do that, I don't think is that much of a technology challenge, although I'm not an engineer, as compared to miniaturizing a nuclear weapon. That certainly is.
Well, what are our military options here, General?
Well, the military option that he has to confront with is all-out war and the loss of North Korea's entire regime. That's what war means here, and that's what he has to face. The very thing, you take the logic through his mind, the very thing he wants to prevent from happening is regime change. He is moving closer and closer to that actually happening. So I'm convinced the sanctions that we've imposed on him is an important first step.
Okay.
But it will likely not change North Korea's behavior, because they're not tough enough.
I agree with you. I agree with you. You know, and I pointed out, General, by the way, it's $1 billion of an impact if China does what they've told us they'll do. And you're talking about a $28 billion economy. So in the scheme of things, it's not that significant. There is much more we could and probably should do in the way of economic sanctions. But that means going head-to-head with China.
Yeah, and that's where we're heading. I think the Trump team are holding back their gunfire here with China to see if China will start moving even more positive than they did with the UN resolutions. But if they don't, then they're going to get their double-barrel shotgun out and go after these guys and really start hammering them, because we don't have a choice. The clock is ticking. Everybody knows that, and it takes time for sanctions to take hold.
Well, General Jack Keane, thank you so much. We'll keep talking to you throughout this story. Thank you, sir.